Hi, this is Stan. Welcome back to the Crow's Nest Railroad. Well, this is part 7, hard to believe, but we've been busy putting in a spur and building a switch here on our railroad, so we've got more metal to bend this week. Stay tuned. Well, in case you're just joining us in the series, way back on part 1, we decided to put a spur in here on the railroad so that I could do some shunting and not have to pick all the cars up and move them by hand every time I wanted to change the order of the rolling stock. So I had to prepare the ground and we had to put some decking in, and then I had to figure out how to build a switch. It's sort of a Y switch, it's right in the curve. And this was my first time building a switch like this, so I'm learning as I go, and folks have been kindly commenting down in the notes below as to their suggestions and things like that. Well, we're getting really close, so let's take a look right now. We've got just some of the final stages, but they're the tricky stages. So this was sort of a nothing back corner in the yard, but it wasn't the same elevation as the track. So I had to build this deck and get it ready for this little spur track here. And I measured this thing out so that I can get at least 4 pieces of rolling stock on here before they interfere with the main line. Not that I would use it for that all the time. So I had to prepare the groundwork, made some ties. I got a frog shipped in to me from Maxitrack over in the UK. Because for my first time I thought, well, I won't try to build my own frog. I'll get one of these aluminum frogs from Michelle at Maxitrack. I had to thicken it just a little bit, step it up to my rail height, which is a little taller. It's culp rail, a little taller than 5-inch gauge or 1-inch to the foot scale rail. So where we're at is we've got all the feeders coming in here from the spur and the main line, and now we've got to make all of the busy parts of the switch, and they're the tricky ones. So let's get started. And good morning, it's another day. Got to get all the tools out again. I had to pack everything up. We had some rain in the forecast, so I had a little mini shop set up on the patio here to work on our track extension, our little switch and spur. So I got to haul everything out again so we can get some work done today. And I'm kind of getting that Unabomber look going there. I got to get a haircut sooner rather than later. All right. Got the rail bender set back up. We're going to need that today. So job number 1, I've got to put a second guardrail in. And as you can see, this is not like an actual piece of rail. It's an aluminum angle. I found some in the garage, and I thought, why not? The wheel doesn't have to ride on this. It's just here to keep the flange and the wheels from creeping that way and picking the points on the switch. So what I did was I drilled a couple of holes, but I'm only putting a couple screws in right now because I can't really test the effectiveness of this until I can approach it this way with the wheels, because this is the big problem area, picking that point there. But what I did was I decided to, even though this rail is a little proud sticking up above this rail, this guard, I stepped it off of the ties by the thickness of like a nut, and I'm going to oversize these holes just a little bit so that I can slightly adjust it this way. I don't know if all the wheels are going to comfortably fit through here. I haven't checked them all. We'll do that later. But for now, I'm going to just put a couple screws in there. I will be able to do some adjusting. It's pretty firm, and see how that works out once we get the front end of the switch done. But Right now, we've got to make a second one, so I'll show you how I made this one by fabricating this one. So I think I mentioned before, I just happened to find a piece of this in the garage. So cut it off on the chop saw to the right length, and I ran it through the rail bender. I don't know if you can see, it's a little dinged up on the bottom because clearly this is not the same profile as the rail, which the rail bender was set up for bending rail, not just random metal parts. But I don't think anybody will notice or care about these little dinged up marks. But it did put a slight smile in it, which is what I need. So now what I'm going to do is take the cutoff wheel. I'm going to slice in on both sides so we can bend that tab back, and that will be just sort of a starter bend. All right, let's make some shrapnel. There we go. Just a little bit of an entry bend on both sides. Well, let me hit it with a file and get rid of some of the slag on there. All right, that's all I can do for right now until we get the bottom part of the switch, the front end, done so that we can run the cars through this way. And we'll have to make some adjustments in and out on both of these guardrails. Well, this is by far for me the most difficult part of making this switch. So this was the piece. Do you mind? Do you mind? So I'm trying to take a look at this. Yeah, all right. So this is the most, so this rail here was the one that I cut out. So it, in theory, has the same radius as this. And this is going to have to be the movable point. It's going to join here. There'll be a, I'll put like a rail joiner right here, maybe one bolt on one side and then 2 bolts on the other side. And then it'll come all the way down to right about here. But 2 things need to happen now. At some point I need to start shaving off the foot of this rail and then cutting into the head of the rail so that by the time I get down here, it's just a tiny sliver. And then I have to do a similar bit of cutting on the foot of this existing rail. I have to start cutting the foot away so the 2 of these can blend together, and we'll have to cut a little notch out of here. So hopefully this rail will be the correct radius. So I've got to trim it off, and then I got to start cutting away on this outside. So let's have at it. You gonna help me? You gonna help me cut that? And the other thing we have to do, we have to get these large-headed screws off of the inside where these rails are going to mate up, and replace them with screws on the outside that are screwed right through the foot of the rail, not just holding it laterally, but in all directions, a hole right through the foot. So I'm wrestling with the camera and the dog. So buckle up, you're going to get seasick on this one. So basically I had to shave the inside off on that back rail, take the foot out, shave the head down, and I had to take the foot off this point and shave the head down, keeping the foot on this side, and make a really thin triangle. Basically I had to grind on this. It already had an arc rolled into it, and then it joined back here, and I may have to cut that open on the chop saw, just make just a little bit more of an opening. So one bolt here, two bolts there, and as my guide I kept snapping these rail gauges in all along the way, and I think I had to put this through the roller once just to give it a little more curve. But I'm too excited about this. There's nothing holding this rail in position other than just the firmness of the joint there. But I am too excited not to give it a try with the train. So I've got to pack all the tools up and put the train away tonight. So I might as well try and back her through and see how it does. Well, this is getting pretty long and it's getting late, so I better wrap it up for this week. I'm pretty excited about the progress that we've made. I'm going to stay busy on the switch and get that second rail. It's basically rinse and repeat what you already saw for this week. And then next time, we're going to have to figure out a mechanism so we can actually operate the switch. All that right here on the Crow's Nest Railroad. This is Stan and Kep saying thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right here next time.